Your potential is your psychological and spiritual water. And if you truly internalize this insight, your life would fundamentally change in two ways. This also applies to people who think they have no potential at all. Now let me explain. First, what do I mean when I say that your potential is your psychological and spiritual water? I'm talking about the fact that your potentials and capacities are also your needs. This idea was most clearly expressed by Abraham Maslow, the great humanistic psychologist who popularized the term self-actualization, and a lot of you know him from the Maslow hierarchy of needs. He spent his whole life studying and researching human potential, more precisely studying why some people live self-actualizing lives, while most people never even scratch the surface of their potential. Well, he said that your capacities, your potentials, are also your needs, just like the need for proper hydration, the need for proper nutrition. So, there is a real need, psychological and spiritual need, to explore and express your potential. So just like not getting proper hydration and not getting proper nutrition hurts your physical health, not exploring and expressing your potentials and capacities hurts your psychological and spiritual health. Maslow even said that unused capacities become disease centers. Now, he wasn't the only one to talk about this. In fact, most of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century expressed this same sentiment just in different ways. Carl Jung and other Jungian analysts and psychologists talked about unlived higher possibilities becoming destructive forces, or unused creative power becoming a toxic force. Otto Rank talked about neurosis as a failure in creativity. Rollo May talked about neurosis being a result of unused potentials. So once again, some of the greatest thinkers, or most of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, the golden age of psychology, express the same idea. And it's now the right moment to emphasize why I'm saying psychological and spiritual always together. Because all of these thinkers recognized that psychology has to interact with the concept of spiritual or spirituality. That it's not as dry as it's often presented nowadays. That's why nowadays you have Carl Jung or figures like Rollo May and even Maslow, or the entire work of Maslow, being regarded as not scientific enough for the mainstream psychological community. Not scientific enough. Why? Because they acknowledged that we have to bring in the element of spiritual into the conversation of mental health, into the conversation of psychology. Now, to go back to the main point, this was a side note, but I think an important side note, because I will always put together psychological and spiritual. So, all of these thinkers said your capacities are also your needs. If you don't explore and express your capacities and your potential, you will suffer deeply psychologically and spiritually. That's the sentiment that all of them expressed. Now, how should your life change, or how would your life change if you in two ways, if you fully internalized this insight? Let's get to it. First, you would recognize that most of what we call mental health problems, or most of what you perceive as mental health problems when you are experiencing them, are signals that you are not living toward your potential. Emphasis on living toward. It will make all the sense and it will have all the importance as we move on. So, when you are struggling with what we consider mental health problems, in most cases, I will not say in all cases, in most cases, it is a signal of not living toward your potential. Not living toward what you could be, what you could become. Now, this is not supposed to produce self-shaming, self-blaming, and unhealthy guilt. Because there is also a concept how guilt at an initial stage, if reacted to properly, could prompt you into action. So that's why I'm saying unhealthy and self-destructive and overly prolonged sense of guilt. So no self-shaming, no self-blaming, no unhealthy, unnecessary sense of guilt. then what is the point of acknowledging that you are not living toward your potential? It's balance between recognition of your limitations and different external circumstances, maybe even oppressive circumstances of your life, but also balancing that with taking personal responsibility. At the very least, personal responsibility in the sense that all humans have the tendency towards laziness, cowardice, and avoidance. Now pause for a moment and consider if you're triggered a bit by this, because I am saying that you have a tendency towards laziness, cowardice, and avoidance. But I have it as well. So can we recognize those tendencies? All of us have them to different extent in different periods of our lives, also influenced by different factors, but we all have those tendencies. And if we acknowledge them, we can realize and understand and internalize the fact that we often are getting in our own way, that we often are not living toward our potential, or not living toward our potential as much as we could. So the first shift that we are supposed to experience is a recognition that we are not broken, we are not messed up, we are not sick in some twisted way when we are experiencing what we call mental health problems. In most cases, it is a very simple, not easy, but very simple truth, not easy to take on, not easy to live, not easy to act on, but a very simple truth that we need to be living our life in a different way, and that we need to be oriented toward our capacities in a different way, and that we need to be honoring our capacities. Once again, for those of you who are living in extremely difficult conditions, for many different reasons, for those of you who are maybe, for beautiful reasons, extremely busy and have forgotten your potential on the journey of sacrifice for your loved ones, or some of you who are not living that type of life, but something even, let's say, more constrictive, more oppressive maybe, I want to acknowledge, yes, besides this personal responsibility, there is a factor, or there are plenty of different factors that come into play that could be preventing us from fully living toward our potential, but never being an excuse to completely abandon the idea of living toward your potential. So all of that coming together to less self-shaming, less self-blaming, less thinking that you are broken, messed up, and sick, more personal responsibility, healthy personal responsibility, and what, most importantly, most hope that you can feel better. Real hope, grounded hope, that you can feel immensely better. So that's the culmination of the first shift. Hope that whenever you are struggling with what we call mental health problems, whenever you are struggling, there is very real grounded hope that you can make a shift towards feeling immensely better and having a very real sense of a fulfilled life, very real sense of honoring who you are and who you could be. Moving towards the second, and this second one could be more practical on a day-to-day basis. Okay, if your capacities are also needs, and if your potential is your psychological and spiritual water, then we can use this analogy. Well, you're not trying to drink all the water that you can and need to drink in your life today or this week, right? If proper hydration is a physiological need, you're not trying to complete the task of hydration once and for all, right? Same about nutrition. You're not trying to get all the macro and micronutrients that you need once and for all. It's a continuous process. Satisfying your needs is a continuous process. So why are we treating the need for exploring and expressing our potential in a different way? Why are you trying or thinking that you need to drink all the psychological and spiritual water today or this week or this month or this year? Why are you putting that immense pressure on yourself? This is something that could truly shift your life, how you look at your journey and how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. Because if this is a never-ending process, and it is a never-ending process, what shift are we experiencing on a very practical level? When you realize that you don't need to take today some massive action that will bring you immense results. You need to prioritize momentum. Momentum, momentum, momentum. For those of you who are not new here, you know that I'm talking about momentum all the time, because that's what shifted my life. That's what shifted my life when I felt stuck, when I was in despair, when I felt I couldn't function properly like a normal human being, when I doubted my ability to actually engage in life as a functioning member of society, when I doubted my sanity, when I was losing hope that I could have normal mental health. When all of that was happening, momentum is what got me out of that place and got me into a position that I am today, where I'm immensely blessed that people find valuable what I write and what I talk about. That I was able to reach millions of people with an immensely high output. But that high output of writing over 400 long form pieces, now I think on YouTube we are over 200 videos. Short form, it's been over one piece, on average over one short form piece per day for over 6 years. All of that output equaling to reaching millions of people. This is not to brag, this is to tell you that's a result of momentum. Prioritizing actions that will allow you to continue taking action sustainably long term. That's momentum. It's a sense of forward movement. So now forget about my writing, where I'm playing the long-term game. Forget about my video making, where I'm playing the long game. What about the game of life? Because exploring and expressing your potential is the game of life. So I'm hoping you're not trying to complete the game of life this year, let alone this month or in the next 3 months. So if you're playing the long game of becoming all that you can be, how are we not prioritizing actions that build momentum? Especially if you're feeling stuck right now, if you're feeling like you're not doing enough, if you're feeling like your capacity to do enough is not right where it should be. Don't drink all the water. Don't try to drink all the water. Don't think that you can or need to drink all the water. Hydrate and nurture yourself on a psychological and spiritual level normally. Okay, let me scrap the word normally. Nurture yourself, hydrate yourself on a psychological and spiritual level in a sustainable manner. Take those daily sips. Now, what does this mean on a practical level when we say prioritizing momentum? It means taking actions then that on internal level signal to you that you are doing something right, and on an external practical level allow you to repeat the same and or build towards greater volume and intensity of action. I will repeat this. You are prioritizing and taking actions that internally signal to you that you are doing the right thing, that you are honoring some of your capacities, honoring some of your potential, honoring a vision of who you could be, honoring a vision of a life that you want to live. So you see, you have many different ways to look at this, and all of them are equally correct, equally right, equally valuable. So internally, that type of action, externally, or action that is internally such that it signals what we said, and action that is such that externally it is very clear that you can repeat it, and you would be able to repeat it infinitely. If you had infinite days to live, you would be able to repeat it infinitely, or to adjust, to grow, increase the intensity and volume, and to downscale it, or to scale it down, whatever the proper expression is, so that on your worst days you can still continue and maintain your momentum, if not increase it. Okay, now for some of you who have very specific idea of what should be the mode or the vehicle of expressing your potential, for some of you who find yourself in those great privileged positions of knowing what your thing is or what your things are, this has now become very clear. Okay, or you've got what you needed to start prioritizing momentum and to prove to yourself that you are going to satisfy and nurture your psychological and spiritual need of expressing potential on a long-term basis. However, there are some of you who are now thinking, but I don't have any potential. And as I said at the beginning, this applies even to those who think they have no potential. Okay, the simplest way to put it is you're wrong. You have potential. Everyone has potential. Maslow talked about this, after dedicating his life to studying self-actualization. Many other thinkers talked about it. Where we go wrong, the mistake that we make, the trap that we fall into, is thinking that actualizing your potential only counts if you're selling out stadiums, winning championships, accepting different awards and recognitions. We are equating potential, human potential, with specific talent and specific external outcomes of that talent. Well, self-actualization, individuation, the journey of personal growth is about growing as a whole human being. So we could even say that some musician who is selling out stadiums is nowhere near self-actualization because of how he or she is relating to themselves and their growth as a human being, while a librarian in your local library is the most self-actualized person, or most self-actualizing. It's always ing because it's a process, it's never finished. So that your librarian is the most self-actualizing person that you will meet. How is this true? Well, once again, it's about growing as a whole human being, which is for those of us who have our thing, like writing, painting, business, humanitarian projects. For those of us who have our own thing, we actually need to be careful about this to continue growing as complete human beings, instead of ending up like let's say an actor who is a great actor, but the rest of his life is falling apart. That is not a self-actualizing person. So now, to bring it back to you who don't know what your potential is, you're doubting that you have potential, you don't know what your talents are, here is a simple way to look at it. If you're supposed to grow as a human being, is self-actualization, is expressing all of your potential to be a complete human being, then you start with asking yourself, okay, what are these actions that I can take today and tomorrow and this week that will create a sense that I'm becoming a better human, a more complete human. Now, this is not to discourage you from exploring different things and finding your thing. I highly encourage everyone to do it, because for me, writing changed my life completely. And studying psychology and philosophy changed my life completely. So finding that thing and then expressing it, I want that for everyone. But that doesn't have to be the starting point. Or waiting to find a thing shouldn't be the approach. I'm going to wait to figure it out, I'm going to wait to find something, and then my journey of growth and self-actualization starts. That's not how it goes. I will start honoring myself, and I will feel that I'm honoring myself and my life and my potential once I find a thing. No. What are the actions that you can take today or this week to create a sense that you're becoming a better, greater, more complete human being? And I'm sure that all of us, so I'm not saying you, all of us, me included, can sit down and come up with multiple things that we can do to become better, greater, more complete, more helpful human beings. Because that's what it is about. Once again, it's not about selling out stadiums. The most famous and most externally successful people that we see today are by no means the most self-actualizing individuals. By no means. So that should remove the pressure from you having to find something extremely impressive and objectively popular for that to be the mode of you honoring your potential, of you drinking your psychological and spiritual water. There is no need for that. Although I encourage, once again, finding a project, a passion, through exploration and trying different things. Now, to summarize all of this, if your potential is your spiritual and psychological water, if your capacities are needs, and if you will suffer deeply by ignoring and neglecting your potential and your capacities, then, first of all, in most cases, what we call mental health problems are results of you not living toward your potential, either direct and main results or byproducts of you not living towards your potential, which should not result in self-shaming and self-blaming, but should create a balance of accepting personal responsibility for reorienting your life and also acknowledging certain circumstances and limitations that are or have been preventing you from living towards your potential. All of this should culminate in you being kinder to yourself, but also holding yourself accountable. Number two, if nurturing yourself, if satisfying your needs is a never-ending process, like with proper hydration, like with proper nutrition, like with healthy relationships, then it is the same with exploring and expressing your potential. You cannot drink all the water this day or this week. You cannot consume all the necessary micro and macronutrients to be a healthy human being for the rest of your life, and you cannot consume them this day or this week. So why should you and how could you try to drink all the metaphorical, psychological and spiritual water this day, this week, or even this year? This leads us to realize and recognize once again what I'm talking about all the time: momentum, momentum, momentum. We have to prioritize momentum. We cannot put on ourselves unnecessary and unfair pressure of taking some immense action that will bring immense results as quickly as possible so that we could finally, once and for all, become self-actualized and complete the game of actualizing our potential. No, we have to prioritize actions that build momentum, meaning actions that internally signal that we are doing something right, that we are honoring our potential, that signal that we are living closer to what we could be, and externally those same actions should show that we can repeat them over and over and over again, and of course take those same actions with increased volume and increased intensity, same or similar actions, and continue growing. But first and foremost, we have to recognize that the actions that we are taking can be repeated because we are playing the long-term game, because we want to continue hydrating ourselves psychologically and spiritually. And for those of you, let's put in the third thing, so 2 major shifts, and for those of you who think you have no potential and you don't know what your way of expressing potential is, you are supposed to grow, you, like all of us, supposed to grow as a complete human being. So start by asking yourself, what can I do today and this week to become a better, greater, more complete, more helpful and useful human being? And also embark on the journey of exploring different projects and activities that could become your passion. And the final thing to say is, you got this. I know you got this. Just don't try to drink the whole jug of potential today or this year, but you got this. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you because I'm confident that those of you who watched the whole video really got it. That's what it means to internalize. I'm not just hoping that you understand this on a rational level. I'm hoping that you really take it in. The whole premise of the video is that it's not your first time that you heard the idea that you must honor your potential. But it's another thing for you to internalize the idea. It's one thing to understand it on a rational level and to think, oh yeah, this is a good argument. But then you continue with your life. You need to internalize it. And you internalize it by recognizing these two shifts and not waiting for these shifts to happen on their own. You leaning into them. So you lean into recognizing the first one and allowing the shift to happen. And you lean into the second one by acknowledging it and taking the actions that we talked about. Okay, stay strong, love life, always love life. Honor your potential step by step. Never feel sorry for yourself. Light a raging fire in your heart. And always go beyond. Thank you.